She said, if you loved me, you'd co-sign my brother's loan. I smiled. Oh? Then I sent the bank the fraud flag we'd filed last year and withdrew as reference. The approval vanished overnight. Her brother showed up furious, and that's when she learned what I already knew. I, 41 male, have always considered myself a patient man. I build systems for a living, complex networks where every action has a predictable reaction. My life is about logic. For 5 years, my girlfriend, Alara, 36, was a welcome, chaotic variable I thought I understood. I was wrong. Her system had a backdoor, and its name was Reese. Reese, 34, is her younger brother, a guy who coasts on a tidal wave of charm and other people's money. He's all toothy grins, grand ideas, and a credit score that looks like a cry for help. We'd had one major run-in before. About a year ago, I got an alert for a credit inquiry I didn't make. Dug into it. Reese had used my personal details, info he'd gotten from Alara's laptop, to apply for a high-interest personal loan. When I confronted them, Alara burst into tears. It was a mistake, a moment of desperation. He was going to pay it right back. Please don't call the police. I was furious, but I loved her. So I made a deal. I wouldn't press charges, but I was taking official steps. I filed a report for identity theft with the credit bureaus, placing an extended fraud alert on my file. This flags any new credit applications and requires creditors to verify my identity through a phone call. I explained this to Alara in simple terms. This is a firewall. It protects me without sending your brother to jail. This is my boundary. She nodded, wiping her tears, promising it would never happen again. Fast forward to last Tuesday. We're making dinner, and she's being unusually affectionate. Then she drops it. Babe, she starts, tracing a pattern on my arm. Riss has the most amazing business idea, a boutique coffee roasting company. He's got the whole plan, the suppliers, everything. He just needs the startup capital. I kept chopping onions. Okay, and he's secured a small business loan, almost all of it. The bank just wants a bit more security, a cosigner. I stopped chopping. I knew where this was going. The air grew thick. He wants me to cosign, I said. It wasn't a question. It's just a formality. His projections are solid. You'll barely be involved, she said, her voice bright and brittle. It's for $85,000. $85,000. For a guy who couldn't manage a prepaid phone plan. I turned to look at her, my face completely neutral. No, her smile faltered. What? Just like that? You won't even look at the plan? Reese has a proven history of financial irresponsibility. Involving me, I said calmly. The answer is no. The mood shifted instantly. The warmth evaporated. I can't believe you. After everything, he's my brother. This is his one big chance. My finances are not his chance. Her eyes narrowed. She stood up, crossing her arms. This was the part of the script where she applied the pressure. If you loved me, you'd do this. You'd support my family. It's what partners do. I felt the sting of it, sharp and cold. It was such a blatant, manipulative move. I put the knife down and gave her a small, tight smile. Oh? She took the smile as a sign I was wavering. Yes. Think about it, Julian. Please. Okay, I said. I'll think about it. I won't cosign. Absolutely not. But maybe I could serve as a professional reference. Vouch for his character, that sort of thing. Send them my details. Her face lit up, a switch flipped. She thought she'd won. Really? Oh, thank you. That would be amazing. The loan officer is named Mr. Davies. I'll have Reese add you as a reference right now. She practically skipped out of the room to call him. I waited until I heard her talking excitedly on the phone. Then I went to my office. I pulled up the bank's website and found the contact for their fraud prevention department. I also located the police report number from the identity theft incident last year. The next morning, I called Mr. Davies. I introduced myself and said I was calling regarding Riss's loan application. He was pleased, telling me my name held a lot of weight. I let him finish. Mr. Davies, I said, my voice level. I am not a reference for this applicant. I am formally withdrawing my name from any association with this application. Furthermore, I need you to attach this police report number to the file. I read him the number slowly and clearly. That report details a prior incident of attempted identity theft perpetrated by the applicant Riss using my personal information. My credit file has an active fraud alert for this very reason. To be clear, any attempt to use my name or credit to secure this loan is fraudulent. There was dead silence on the other end. I could practically hear the gears turning, the risk assessment plummeting. "I see," Mr. Davies finally managed to say. "Thank you for this information, sir. We will review the application accordingly." I hung up. I didn't feel triumph, just a hollow, grim certainty. The approval, which Alara had told me was in the bag, vanished less than 24 hours later. Friday night, there was a loud, aggressive banging on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Reese. His face was a thundercloud. I opened the door. "What did you do?" he snarled, pushing past me into the house. Alara was right behind him, her expression a mask of teary-eyed confusion and accusation. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said, closing the door. "The loan. The bank rejected it. They said new information came to light about my financial history. That was you. You poisoned the well," he shouted, his voice echoing in the hall. Alara chimed in, her voice trembling with manufactured hurt. "Julian, how could you? You said you'd be a reference." And that's when she learned what I already knew. "I did more than that, Alara," I said, looking directly at her. "I told the bank the truth. I told them about the fraud flag on my credit file, the one I had to place there because of your brother." Her face went pale. The act fell away, replaced by genuine shock. You filed an official report? I thought you just called the company." "No," I said coldly. "I protected myself legally. When the bank saw my name attached to his application, they saw the alert. They did their due diligence. It seems they found him to be a poor risk." Reese looked back and forth between us, the dots connecting in his slow, entitled mind. The anger on his face curdled into pure rage. He lunged toward me. "You son of a—" I didn't even flinch. I just stood my ground. The attack never came, but the war had just begun. Update 1. The week since the confrontation has been a masterclass in emotional manipulation. After Reese's little lunge, which Alara managed to stop by grabbing his arm and pleading, they left in a huff. The silence for the next 2 days was deafening. I knew they were regrouping, strategizing. The first volley came from Alara's mother, Clarissa. She called me Tuesday morning. "Julian, dear," she began, her voice syrupy sweet. "I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Alara is simply beside herself with grief." "There's no misunderstanding, Clarissa," I replied. "Reese is a good boy. He's just creative. Sometimes his ambition gets ahead of him. That little credit issue last year was just a mistake. For you to hold it against him, to ruin his one chance at making something of himself, it's just cruel. He tried to steal my identity, Clarissa. That's not a little credit issue. You're being dramatic. You're tearing this family apart over some paperwork. You need to call that bank and fix this. Tell them you were mistaken, for Alara's sake." "That won't be happening," I said, and hung up. The next day, Alara showed up at the apartment after I got home from work. She'd been crying. Her eyes were puffy and red. It was a full-scale assault. "I can't eat. I can't sleep," she whispered, standing in the doorway. "My family is in turmoil because of you." "Your family is in turmoil because of Reese's actions and their refusal to hold him accountable." "He's my brother," she cried, as if that explained and excused everything. "What am I supposed to do? You expect me to choose?" "I never asked you to choose. I just asked that you not expect me to finance his bad decisions and enable his behavior. My boundary was clear, Alara." "A boundary? You went behind my back and filed a police report. You humiliated him." This was their new narrative. I was the villain, the one who acted in bad faith. My self-protection was being framed as an act of aggression. Then came the real dirty trick. We had this thing, a project we'd been working on for years. It was a custom-designed board game we called Chronos Engine. It was incredibly complex, with hundreds of hand-painted miniatures and interlocking components. It was our baby, a symbol of our shared future, our plans. We'd even commissioned a beautiful handcrafted wooden box for it. It was, to me, priceless. I came home Friday to find the box gone from its shelf in the living room. My heart sank. A cold dread washed over me. I knew instantly what had happened. I searched the apartment. No Alara. No note. No game. I sat down at my computer, my hands shaking slightly. I typed the game's name into a popular online marketplace, and there it was, listed for sale. The seller's profile was new, the location anonymous, but the photos were unmistakable. They were taken on the rug in her parents' living room. Reese had listed it for $5,000. The description read, Rare, one-of-a-kind prototype board game, perfect for a serious collector. They weren't just trying to hurt me, they were trying to liquidate our shared history. All that talk of love and partnership, and she let him steal the most personal thing we owned and put a price tag on it. The rage I felt was clean, pure, and clarifying. This was no longer about a loan, it was about a fundamental betrayal. I didn't call her. I didn't text Reese. I took high-resolution screenshots of the online listing. I documented the seller's profile. I then pulled up the photos I had of the game in my apartment, complete with metadata proving when and where they were taken. I compiled it all into a neat digital folder. Then, for the second time in a year, I drove to the police station. This time, it wasn't for a faceless report about identity theft. It was to file a report for felony theft of a specific, valuable, and irreplaceable item from my home. And I had the name of my primary suspect, Reese. Update 2. Things escalated in a way I don't think they ever anticipated. My response to the stolen game wasn't emotional or frantic, it was procedural. And that, it turns out, is what they were least equipped to handle. A detective was assigned to my case. A calm, no-nonsense woman who looked over my evidence, the photos, the screenshots of the sale listing, my description of the item, and nodded slowly. The value I placed on the commission box and custom components easily pushed it into felony territory. Last Monday, 2 uniformed officers paid a visit to Clarissa's house. They weren't there to chat. They were there to inquire about a stolen item, which, according to an active online listing, was likely on the premises. The fallout was immediate. I got a blistering call from Alara. "The police? You sent the police to my parents' house?" She shrieked into the phone. "Are you insane? My mother almost had a heart attack. They're treating Reese like a criminal. That's because, in this specific instance, he is one. He stole from me. It was a misunderstanding. He just borrowed it. He thought you wouldn't mind. Did he also borrow my password to the marketplace site and accidentally list it for $5,000? Save the lies, Alara. You were in on it." The pictures were taken on your parents' rug. There was a sputtering silence. She'd been caught. The lies were too thin to cover the facts. "You have to call them off, Julian. Tell them it was a mistake. Reese is freaking out. This could go on his record." He should have thought of that before he walked out of my home with my property. The game needs to be returned, untouched today, or my next call is to the detective to press charges to the fullest extent of the law. Within 2 hours, the Kronos engine was sitting on my doorstep, left there like an orphan. The box was a little scuffed, but everything was inside. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. They saw the return of the game not as a resolution, but as a reset. Now that I had my stupid toy back, as Clarissa later called it, I should drop everything else and fix the loan situation. The entitlement was breathtaking. This is when I decided I needed more than just a defensive strategy. I needed to understand the whole picture. I hired a private investigator. A quiet professional recommended by a lawyer I know. It felt surreal, like something out of a movie, but it was surprisingly affordable. I gave him Reese's name and asked him to do a deep dive into his finances and his so-called business plan. The report I got back a week later was staggering. The boutique coffee roasting company was a complete fabrication. The business plan was a template he'd downloaded online. The addresses for his potential suppliers were vacant lots. Reese wasn't an aspiring entrepreneur. He was drowning. He had tens of thousands of dollars in online gambling debts and was being hounded by several very unsavory private lenders. The $85,000 loan wasn't for startup capital. It was bailout money to stop his legs from being broken. But that wasn't the worst part. The PI, using methods I didn't ask about, recovered a series of deleted emails. Emails between Alara and Reese from the weeks leading up to her asking me to co-sign. He's going to say no. You know how he is with money. "I can handle Julian. I'll make it about us, about supporting family. Use the 'if you loved me' line. It always works." He's logical, but he's not immune to guilt. "Just get him to sign." Davey said with his credit, it's a slam dunk. "Once the money clears, we can deal with his whining. Don't worry. I'll make him think it's his idea to help. He'll feel like a hero." Reading those words felt like a physical blow. It recontextualized our entire relationship. Every tender moment, every shared secret, was now tainted by the knowledge that I was being managed, manipulated. I wasn't her partner. I was a mark. Her love was a tool she used to get what she and her family wanted. Saturday, she asked to meet at a coffee shop, a neutral ground. She wanted to talk things through. I agreed. She arrived looking exhausted, ready to play the victim one last time. She spoke about forgiveness, about family making mistakes, about how we could get past this if I would just be reasonable. I let her finish. Then I slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked. Read it. It was the PI's report. The summary of his debts, the addresses of the vacant lots. And printed out, in black and white, were her emails with her brother. I watched her face as she read. The color drained from it. The faux sorrow was replaced by the chalky white of pure panic. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with terror. She couldn't spin this. She couldn't reframe it. It was all there. "Julian," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It was never about coffee, was it?" I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "It was always about the money, and I was the solution." She started to cry, real tears this time. Tears of being caught. "I love you," she sobbed. "No, you don't," I said, standing up. "You loved what I could provide. There's a difference." I left her there with the report. When I got home, I packed every single thing she owned into boxes. I put them by the door. I changed the locks. Then I forwarded a copy of the PI's full report, including the emails, to Mr. Davies at the bank's fraud department and to the detective handling the theft case. I attached a note, for context. I wasn't just withdrawing as a reference anymore. I was providing them with evidence of a conspiracy to commit loan fraud. My revenge wouldn't be loud or explosive. It would be the quiet, grinding, and inevitable consequence of their own actions. Final update. It's been over 7 months since I handed Alara that report in the coffee shop. The divorce from her and her family's drama has been finalized, not in a court of law, but in the court of reality. The consequences for them were not swift, but they were thorough. The bank, armed with the PI's report and the emails, didn't just deny the loan. They launched a full-scale internal fraud investigation, and as is their policy, reported Reese to the authorities for attempting to defraud a financial institution. Combined with the existing police report for the theft of my game, he was suddenly a person of significant interest. Reese's life unraveled. The private lenders he owed money to were not as patient as a bank. I heard through the grapevine that his car was repossessed in a very public fashion from outside his parents' house. The last I heard, he was facing serious legal charges for fraud and was forced to sell his parents' second car to pay for a lawyer. There is no more charm, no more big ideas. Just a panicked man facing the bill for a lifetime of recklessness. Clarissa and her husband are now saddled with their son's problems. Their social standing took a hit when the story, a heavily spun version, I'm sure, got out. They tried to paint me as a vindictive ex who couldn't handle being dumped. But the whispers of Rissa's gambling debts and fraudulent activities were louder. They are learning, far too late, that enabling has a cost. Alara tried everything. Apologies, threats, tearful voicemails, emails from new accounts after I blocked her. She accused me of ruining her life, of destroying her family. She never once took accountability for her role as a willing co-conspirator. It was always my fault for not playing my part in her scheme. The entitlement was welded to her soul. She eventually moved out of state, I believe, unable to face the mess she helped create. As for me, the first few months were strange. The quiet in the apartment felt heavy. I'd look at the Kronos engine box on the shelf and feel a pang of something. Not love for her, but grief for the future I thought we were building. It was a phantom limb, an ache where a part of my life used to be. But that feeling has faded, replaced by a profound sense of peace. I didn't set out for a spectacular, fiery revenge. I just met their deception with facts. I met their manipulation with boundaries. I met their criminality with the legal system. I simply got out of the way and let their own actions run them over. I've been spending more time on my own hobbies, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected. My life is logical and orderly again. The chaotic variable has been removed from the system. I learned a hard lesson about trust, but I also learned that I am far more resilient than I ever imagined. The ultimate satisfaction isn't that they are suffering, it's that I am not. I am free. And in the quiet of my home, that is more than enough.